Have you heard about cryptocurrency? Maybe you actually own some cryptocurrency and you understand this on the blockchain, but you don't necessarily understand a lot about it. Well, blockchain has so many different things that it can be applied to as a technology. And I've got my buddy from Test Your Levels who's involved in several different projects with utilizing blockchain technology, say that 5 times fast, on different projects. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on? What is going on? Crypto is one of my favorite topics to talk about. Just ask my wife and my family members. I talk about it all the time. It's just such an interesting space because it can be used for so many different things. You know, if people just think, okay, blockchain, public ledger, people can see transactions and that's kind of it, but it's so versatile. It's being used in so many different ways. So how did you get into crypto?
I've known about crypto I actually had a full Bitcoin that was given to me for helping somebody with their diet plan back in 2013. And I lost it. No idea where that went.
Really? Oh, that's gotta hurt so bad.
But I didn't fully dive into it until probably over the last, 12 months. I've been going a little bit deeper, and then more specifically over the last 6 months, I was like, this is the next thing that I need to figure out. Like what I did Tesla, now I need to get into this arena because I see and understand the impact it's going to have. And we had chatted before about this, and you had mentioned, I think it's called Helium, right? And they're using blockchain technology, but in a unique way. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So Helium is really cool. So Helium's kind of like a kind of project that a couple new projects are coming out like this, where the cryptocurrency and the blockchain aspect isn't really like the core business. It's not just, Helium didn't just create a token that you can send to someone else across the world for very low fees. What they're trying to do is build what's called a LoRaWAN network. And long story short, it's a frequency that the government has allowed them to use to transmit small bits of data. And so think like, okay, so you have cattle, right? And you put a little chip in their ear that sends out a radio signal. And if you had a couple of these sensors all around your farm, you could see where a particular cow is because it would ping back to that thing. So that's the kind of network. It's called an Internet of Things. So let's say you're one of those little. What was that?
Sorry, question on that. Okay, so it's a certain frequency that allows a certain amount of data, and there's a distance that it can travel as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So it's not as powerful as like cell phones. It's not as as Wi-Fi. It's a lower frequency. So at this point, they're just trying to do like small little bits of like locational data, but they're working on 5G. They actually have a 5G tower, I guess you could call it. So, and I mean, another example is if you're like one of those companies that does the electric scooters in a city. So if you loaded up all of those with a little sensor, you could log in and use Helium to see where your little scooters are, and you pay for the data that they use. So what's interesting is, so what a Helium miner is, it's basically a little like Raspberry Pi like computer that uses very little power, and it has an antenna connected to it. And it shoots out this signal, right, to provide coverage for the network. And the way that the cryptocurrency is used is how they're paying the miners. So it's called proof of coverage. So my antenna, which I have a massive antenna in my attic, will send out a signal to the other, send out a signal. And then the other towers or antennas near me will say, hey, I see you, I know where you are and you're on. And it sends a signal back, and then we'll both get rewarded in the Helium coin for doing that. So we're providing proof of coverage. So it's making sure that all these different hotspots are actually up and providing coverage for the network. So it's pretty interesting.
What's a utility from, so we got one where you can apply that, the Helium technology, blockchain, or whatever project it's called in terms of terminology. A company could kind of apply that, but then also, at some point, it looks like they're going to be going so that like an end user would have value in it. Is that accurate? Because right now, what is the value to?
So So right now there is not much. It's a very specific use case. You know, so for example, someone that owned a car wash, right? And you have different levels of different, like, you know, soaps and whatever, water, whatever it is, you know, there's sensors built in, and they have to pay for a 4G hotspot so that those things can send the signal to a cell tower. Well, this would be essentially the same idea, except for that the data would cost so much less money. So where it may cost them $60 for a data plan, it may cost them 55 cents a month for, you know, for using this data. But their next evolution is 5G. So they're looking to provide cell phone data coverage.
Wow.
And they're building out their network with regular people, paying them in cryptocurrency instead of investing billions of dollars in cell towers and equipment.
Wow. This is, if I mean, is there a development team, or how does this work in terms of the development to get to there? Because what you're describing is effectively getting rid of, I mean, in essence, getting rid of Verizon and T-Mobile and AT&T, and instead of the companies making that money to maintain the network, it is the people who use the network, and you have a miner at your house and you're basically maintaining the network and you're getting paid for that, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah. Well, it's called, they call it the People's Network. And so right now I just get money for providing the proof of coverage, right? But if I were to get a 5G miner, or if there was a farm right near me, at some point they're going to they're not going to flip it, but you're going to get additional income for the data that's used off your tower. And so here's a really cool, like use case scenario, right? So let's say I fly over to Spain, right? I've got to get a burner phone, or I have to bring my phone, get a SIM card, buy minutes, buy data, all that stuff. Imagine if I was able to, I land in Spain, I open up the Helium app, I want $20 worth of data. Boom, I get $20 worth of data. I'm in the middle of Spain, uploading pictures to my Instagram, whatever else. Some of that money that I'm spending in credits is going to the person that owns that tower or that miner that's shooting out the 5G and transmitting my data for me.
Wow. And okay, so I asked about the development team. You were about to answer, and then I just kept talking.
Yeah.
How does that work? Is the development team centralized, or is that also decentralized?
So it is a centralized team. It's a centralized team. It's an actual company. They just recently got like $151 million or $150 million in funding, additional funding. So they're a team. They have an app. They have an explorer. Like, it's a legit like company. So it's not decentralized, you know, and decentralization is fantastic, but there are drawbacks as well. Like you said, you can't call Bitcoin customer service and be like, hey, can you guys reset my password? I lost my Bitcoin. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the problems with it. Another problem is, you know, I can't just you know, take a Bitcoin and transfer it to an Ethereum wallet to send to someone. So there has to be some cross-chain connectivity. Like, I think we're in the infancy stages of crypto or blockchain technology as we start. Fun story about Bitcoin. My life could be completely different if I had a different mindset when I learned about Bitcoin. So I was at a party, and one of my buddy's younger brothers was telling me about Bitcoin. And he said, this was when you could mine it on like a regular computer, when you didn't need specialized hardware. And he was telling me about it. And I was like, oh yeah, so your little computer's doing little math problems, earning your fake little internet currency. And he was like, yeah, he's like, I have like 4 or 5 I've already got. And I was like, oh, okay. And dude, they were cheap back then, like cheap. I don't remember the exact price, but if I had looked into it, I would have gotten into it, because a few years later, so I was actually working in a building, and this guy had a Bitcoin mining farm out in Kansas. And if you look it up, he was the first person to ever buy a car with Bitcoin. He bought a Tesla, which I know you like. This was back in the day. I don't remember the exact year, but if you look, you can look it up. He bought the Tesla from a Lamborghini dealership down in like Fort Myers or Fort Lauderdale. I think he paid, I don't know the number for it, but I know that he overpaid for it at this point based on, you know, Bitcoin being 40 some odd $1,000. But then me and a buddy looked into getting Bitcoin miners, but it was a different time then. So you would have like 5 different companies claiming that their machines can do this amount of mining, and you had to prepay for them. And, you know, you're prepaying to a company that you have no idea. So And so at that point, like they could have, by the time you actually got your miner and turned it on, there could have already been a massive batch of ones that are twice as powerful, which makes yours less profitable. So we never got into it. But what if I had?
Well, you're doing it right now. You already spoke of mining helium.
Yeah.
So can you talk, if you're cool with that, how much do you make mining helium every day? Roughly?
So it's nothing crazy. It varies from $3 to $10 a day.
Which is still passive.
Takes 5 watts of power.
So how much, what's it cost in 5 watts?
Oh, it may be $1 a month, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, a light bulb, the average light bulb is 40 to 100 watts. So think about that, you know?
Okay, fantastic. Okay.
So it's literally like nothing.
And you had looked into the mining stuff. I remember looking into those a couple of years ago, just casually to the side, and I'm like, that would have been very interesting if I decided to dive in deep. But you have another miner, right, in a different project completely. What is that one about?
This one's called Planet Watch. And so I bought a certain antenna for my helium, and it wasn't the right type of antenna for where I live in my elevation. So I put it on Facebook Marketplace, and I met up with the kid. He wasn't a kid, but younger than me, and his dad. His dad was like 65, 70. And we started talking about cryptocurrency and helium, and he got his dad into it, and his dad was like trading it, and they run like 3 Bitcoin machines at their house. But he was telling me about this project called Planet Watch, and it's an interesting concept. So their idea is to gather air quality data from around the world, all different places, and they want to sell this data to municipalities, private companies for research, stuff like that. So they partnered with a few companies that produce air quality monitoring devices. And they came out with, I don't know if there's specific models for this, but basically my little miner takes 720 up to 720 air quality readings per day and sends them that information. In return, they send me between like 15 and 23 of these Planet Watch tokens a day. Right now it's a little low, but they were up at like 38 cents a piece. So 38 times 20 something, it's like, $7, $8, $9 a day.
So
it's right here. I moved it over here so we could see it. I don't know.
Oh, that's tiny. That's yeah. So that's like an alarm clock type size device. And it looks like it's smaller than a cell phone from left to right, and about the same in terms of height, but the thickness is obviously like 5 or 6 phones stacked together.
Yeah, and basically it gives me a number. So 78 is not so good. It measures like temperature, humidity, CO2, something VOC, and then particles per million. And it's pretty neat. It's a pretty cool device. It looks pretty sleek. And it works too.
So question about that from a fitness type of perspective. Do you get to see the readings so that you could manipulate the air quality in your house to affect them?
I mean, I guess you could to a point. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe if you were adding in more filtration, but it will like give you like tips. One of the things it's always telling me is that the humidity in my house is too high. But I live in Florida. There's not much I can do about that. I mean, it just kind of is what it is, but it'll give you like warnings, like if you're cooking, like I was cooking steak and, it was searing a little bit and this thing it's shot up. Like it's pretty sensitive.
Interesting. So you're basically making somewhere between $5 combined per day, $5 to $7 per day on the low end to maybe $20 a day on the higher end between both of those projects.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't sound too crazy, but you multiply 10 by 365, that's $3,650. That's a hell of a nice vacation, And then if you double it to 20, and it's never going to be 20 consistently, but that's $7,000. I mean, shit.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Exactly. That's $800 a month or something, whatever that comes out to be.
And if you're watching this and you're like, oh well, shit, I'm just going to pick up a helium miner and this aware element thing. They're back ordered. They're back ordered. I think the helium miners are like 20 weeks. I don't know how long these are, but people found out about it. For crypto, I always kind of find out about stuff like on the tail end of the beginning. Like, like this people who are like in it hardcore and watch it like all the time. Like as soon as kind of more normal people try to figure it out, there's usually when I find out about stuff.
Well, so, I have two questions for you in a moment, but what I think what you're talking about is the tail end of extremely early adopters, because we're having this conversation because both of these projects are Helium. I've heard about before, kind of in the name, but I've never actually fully understood it. And the Air project, I've never heard about until we were speaking the other day. So you're still at, most of the population has no idea what you're fucking talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. So question for you. So somebody who's watching is like, okay, cool. How do you spend Helium if you have this currency? Like, nobody's going to fucking take Helium. So can you explain the process of what you need to do that?
So you're talking about like exchanging or trying to turn it into cash. So that's the one thing about crypto, and that's kind of where the government's got involved, is if we're for crypto exchanges and for stuff, they do, know your client, where they have to know your name, social, driver's license. So in essence, so what you would do, they're called exchanges. And basically I would get an account on an exchange that has Helium. And the one that I found, no, that's for Planet Watch anyway. But I would get an account, I would get on the exchange, I would go into the Helium pairing or whatever it was that I wanted to do. So like Helium to USDT, which is a stable coin. And I would find the address for that wallet. I would send it from my wallet to that wallet. It would take a few confirmations before they solidify that cryptocurrency was there. And then I would be able to transfer it to USDT, which is a stable coin that's kind of pegged right around $1. And then I would have to send that USDT to somewhere who would be able to deposit in my bank. In my case, it would be like Coinbase. So I would send that to my Coinbase wallet, and then I would cash it out for cash. Sounds super simple, right?
The process is at this point in the stage of development of crypto in general, and these awesome projects and stuff is new. And it sounds complex if it's new to you, but once you understand what's going on, so it's like, it's really not that complex. It actually forces you to not spend the money on stupid shit, because the process takes 3 days or 5 days or however long it takes to go through that process. And most of that is just because once you can do all those transactions in an hour, and then it takes Coinbase 3 to 5 days to fucking send it to you. It's not that process we just talked about takes a long time. It's Coinbase to send you cash takes forever to get to your bank.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the actual crypto exchanges and sending is virtually instant for the most part on most blockchains. But once it's getting it into cash, the government money is what makes it cumbersome. That's it. If me and you were like, if I was buying your supplement and I was in person and you're like, okay, well, $55. And I said, oh, okay, well, I've got this much Ethereum. And you're like, I'd rather like Bitcoin. I could go on an exchange it for Bitcoin and send it to you. And it would be a relatively quick transaction. But for me to take the Bitcoin, get it into cash, to hand it to you, that's where it is. That's the legacy payment system.
It's so slow, purposefully. Two things that I wanted to, real quick, I want to tell you about this and then get your opinion on this. So Signal, you're probably aware of the messaging app that advocates privacy and its end-to-end encryption. The Signal is the messaging app that I use every day. I don't use another, or WhatsApp is what I use for my girlfriend because she travels a lot, but Signal is my primary messaging app. They, in November, came out with transferring currency, cryptocurrency, but only for mobile coin. Mobile coin is specifically like end-to-end, completely autonomous. So, or not autonomous. What's the word? It's not autonomous. It's
anonymous.
Anonymous. I'm thinking about self-driving cars. Anonymous.
It's a different video.
Yes. So, what are your thoughts on that? Because you get this completely private messaging platform that also will allow you and I to exchange money off of any type of exchange once we have mobile coin.
That's interesting. I vaguely heard of Signal. I mean, I know WhatsApp's supposed to be encrypted, but isn't that owned by Facebook?
And the money portion of it is tracked, I believe.
Oh, well, you know, if it's Facebook
yes, it
and
is
it's
Facebook.
encrypted,
Yes.
you know where you're safe. I mean, they've proven time and time again that they protect your data. That's interesting, man. I've vaguely heard of Signal. I've never heard of the mobile coin, but that sounds so. It's similar to Monero, if you're familiar with that one. So, oh, dude, look up Monero. Monero is awesome. Monero is an OG coin too. It's an OG. You can only right now you can only mine it on computer processors, because they wanted to make it more available to be decentralized. So I don't have to buy a $900 graphics card. I could, anyone with a computer could mine it. You're not going to get rich, but, so they want to spread out the hash power so that it's more stable. But Monero, dude, it's privacy. The US government just put out a $1.5 million bounty, I don't know, however long ago, to see if they can crack Monero. And so far they haven't been able to. So I send you Bitcoin, right? The public ledger, that's part of the beauty of blockchain, is the public ledger. I can see that, my address sent you this amount of Bitcoin and you received it, and that's on the ledger forever. So the government, if they figure out what your wallet is, your address, they can say, oh, look, Pete, sir, this guy sent it to, what's his name? So it's not anonymous. What Monero did is they use something, I don't even fully understand it, but it's called ring signatures. So I send you a Monero, right? On the blockchain, it says some random address sent some other random address a random amount of Monero. So you'll actually receive one Monero, just like it's supposed to work. But on the blockchain, it looks completely like they take transactions and like swirl them around and then change the numbers, and then so you can't crack it. So on the dark web that used to be all Bitcoin, as soon as they realized the government could figure that out, it's all Monero now, or other privacy coins.
So we can talk on this, keep going on and on, but I'll get to my last question here, because when you talk about the Bitcoin and they can track that, right? If they know your address, but if you move it to cold storage, the only issue I see there is that, like, say, potentially Coinbase or any exchange will track the address you sent it to. Even if they track it, like, then at some point they're like, oh, well, Sam owned it here and they transferred it here. This is his address. And now they have that. So you need to do like a secondary transfer away from that address that they know in order to, I don't know what your thoughts are on that real quick. And then I'll ask my last thing. I'm sorry.
I mean, you can only do so much, and cold storage is a good thing to do. Cold storage, a device like a ledger, those are pretty cool. So basically you need this device, you need your password, you also need a PIN in order to send or receive money. So, so basically it's pretty well protected. It's well thought out. But I just wanted to kind of go into, I know people, like at least people on my channel, they're not looking to learn about specific coins as much. Just you have to look into cryptocurrency. It is such a fantastic technology. From cell phones to air quality monitoring to sending transactions. I could send someone in Russia money in seconds. And if you look online, you'll see some of these like Ethereum whales and Bitcoin whales, they're moving like $500 million for like a fee of like $1.20, And I told this story last night, but so Venezuela just made Bitcoin a legal tender. And they did that for a couple of reasons. A, because their money is worth dog shit because they've printed too much money. There's another country doing that right now. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but anyway,
there's multiple different countries. I think there's one Central or South America that is not Venezuela that also made it legal tender, legal currency, or whatever the case is. And it's fascinating. highly recommend it.
But the people in Venezuela created their own wallet for Bitcoin for their people to use. They took away the fees for using Bitcoin. So here's a scenario. So a lot of people who live in America or different parts of the world, they'll send money to their family who live in Venezuela. And the only real way to do that is Western Union. Well, Western Union takes a shit ton of fees, right? And then, so let's say you live in a country that's not as stable and safe as America, and you're walking into a place that everyone knows is where you go to pick up money. What do you think could happen to you after you leave that place? You know, so people were getting robbed when they were leaving Western Union. It's a big problem. You don't want Meemaw to be, you know, get beaten in the middle of the street for $80 when you originally sold her 120, but got raped on fees. So that's why they adopted blockchain technology, because I can just, hey, Meemaw's address, click, I'm going to send her 300 Satoshis, click, few confirmations of Bitcoin, and boom, Meemaw's got money to spend, and she didn't get beat up.
Okay, so this is my last question, I swear, because I know you
I can talk about this all day.
Okay, well, if you guys like this, let us know in the comments, because we'll do future videos, because I enjoy the conversation as well. So I got a Crypto.com, and I've never purchased on it, but I have an account with them, and that's an exchange, from my understanding, as well as Coinbase, that is also an exchange. That's the one that everybody knows about. When you look at prices, they're different. Why is that? And can I arbitrage that for profit? I mean, I know there's like some crypto bots that try to work on arbitrage. Have to be quick though, you know, and that's the thing, is that there isn't a world system like designated and regulated to say, okay, Bitcoin is exactly $43,000 and it's listed and shown all around. It's like a general kind of like idea. I personally have never tried arbitrage. I mean, it seems like I'm gonna try it this week. You just gave me the fuck. I'm doing it this week.
I think you'd have to have multiple different like exchange accounts open, and you'd have to, I guess, you take it from one where it's higher and then drop it into one where it's lower, so you have more amounts, and then I don't know. That's like, out of my realm.
So my background is in I have an MBA in finance and accounting, and there's a thing called a CFA. So if you look at like hedge funds or investment research analysts or people who work at Wall Street, or if you look at a mutual fund, the prospectus will say like, oh, this person has a CFA, like that type of thing. And they talk about that a lot where you get your CFA. And I was looking at this earlier, right before we got on this call, and there's a $20 difference. $20 difference if you're talking about equities, so meaning like stock, you got Tesla or Apple. That would be fucking gargantuan, because there's exchanges in New York and Chicago and other places around the world, and there's massive amounts of money in that for pennies that are different. And I pull up Crypto.com and I pull up Coinbase, and there's a $20+ delta difference between the two of those, and I was like, holy fuck, I'm going to ask you about this, because I'm going to test this week and see what are the transaction fees for that. For like, does it vary per exchange?
For Bitcoin, it seems to be, I mean, it seems to be about $1 something. I mean, it depends on how congested the network is. Ethereum's like $5 to $8, and that's
per transaction.
Yeah, so
independent of the amount.
Pretty much, yeah, regardless of the amount really doesn't matter. You know, that's just a digital number. You know, so for Ethereum, so the way that Ethereum kind of works is they use what's called gas, right? And so if you wanted a transaction to go through like instantly, you would spend the Ethereum on gas, and that's prioritizing the miners to push your transaction through, because they get a portion of that gas. But when the whole network is fucking slammed, you know, just 100%. Now people are spending more and more gas because they want their transaction to go through quickly. And that's one of the biggest problems with Ethereum, is that it's so popular and they haven't been able to jump to that next Ethereum 2.0, which goes to proof of stake, which means there's no more miners. You're protecting the blockchain by putting up your Ethereum as collateral.
Okay, so if you said $5 to $8 maybe ish per transaction with Ethereum.
The last time I did a transaction, that's what I saw. But
so there would be a break-even point if you could get the price, you buy at the cheaper price, you transfer it over to this wallet, and you sell at the higher price. That is, say $6 here, $6 here. If there's a $20 difference, you just made $8.
If you can do it fast, if you can do it fast enough, and Bitcoin or Ethereum doesn't drop $100 while in the middle of that transaction, there's a lot of. I'm sure you could pull it off, but I don't think it would be. I think if it was that like surefire, like easy money, I'm pretty sure like people would be doing it like all the time.
Does it take several minutes for a transaction to go through?
It depends. It depends. Some coins it's near instant. Like Litecoin is pretty darn. Litecoin is like Bitcoin Lite. It's super cheap to send money and it's pretty darn fast. But it depends. But now you're working through Coinbase and Crypto.com. Those are not pure crypto transactions. You know, like so you're sending money and it's going into one of their hot wallets. And then when you're sending it out, it's coming out of one of their hot wallets. Those may not be the same coins. And it's not going to be instantaneous like me sending it directly to you on the Litecoin blockchain. So I don't know. I mean, I'd give it a try. I don't know. I feel like it's hard to do. But I did want to mention, like, you know, are you familiar with F1 racing?
Very minimally. I know the name and like the race cars.
It's the biggest sport in the world. That and soccer, pretty much. Like it's bigger than the NFL. Oh,
really?
Dude.
I didn't know that.
Look up the highest paid athlete. They're either going to be a soccer player or an F1 driver, because it's super popular all over the world. Like, but anyway, Crypto.com is one of the main sponsors of F1 this year. So, do you know an F1 car can cost over like $200 million to build?
200 million?
200 million.
Wow.
Dude,
there has to be a massive amount of money for that to be profitable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But it's so competitive that, you know, every little thing matters. But anyway, if you think if Crypto.com, who 10 years ago, you said the word crypto, people looked at you like you were dumb. But Crypto.com is now sponsoring one of the largest sports in the world. So let that sink in for a minute. And I can't be 100%, but I believe they are sponsoring one of the basketball stadiums. It may be in LA. I can't remember, but it's like the Crypto.com arena. Like imagine everyone that's going to that arena who's never heard of crypto. They're like, what the hell is Crypto.com? Boom. They start looking into it. They start reading it. Maybe they see this video, probably not because it'll be on my channel, but it's interesting. And this is not financial advice. I'm not saying you're going to be rich, but Bitcoin is a deflationary asset. And Sam, I know you know what that means, but so the US dollar is an inflationary asset, whereas we print more as we need it. That makes each dollar worth less. That makes things more expensive. If you've been to the gas pump in the past few months, you know what I'm talking about. Freaking sucks. It's costing me more to fill up my little Nissan 370Z than it was to fill up my freaking 6.2 liter supercharged Cadillac. So it's crazy. But the way Bitcoin is deflationary is there will only be 21 million Bitcoins ever printed. Not another one will ever be made. I mean, they could change that, but that's the way it's coded right now. So every time a block is produced and transactions are processed, a certain amount of Bitcoin is sent to the miner that figured that out. It's called the mining reward. That's why you have massive Bitcoin mining farms with thousands of machines all fighting for that money. Right now, I believe it's 6.25 Bitcoin per block. Every 4 years, that gets cut in half. So let's just do an easy number. So let's say it's 6 right now. In 4 years, it'll be 3. In 4 years, it'll be 1.5 and then 0.75. And so you see how that gets smaller and smaller. So less and less Bitcoin is being let out into the ecosystem. So if there's a ridiculous amount of demand and less supply, the price in theory goes up. That's just the way it works.
I thought about this the other day in terms of that. And I completely agree 100%. I don't know if Bitcoin will be like what we do transactions in, because like when you think about assets, right? Like I own the rental property and I don't want to sell the rental property because it's going to go up in value. When you see Bitcoin and you realize that it's a asset that can appreciate over time versus something that does have a little bit of inflation built into it, like some other coins that have some like limit to how much or limit to the growth of which it can expand built into it, those seem more appropriate to like do stuff in, where you can kind of just sit it into Bitcoin, but everything else, like let's do transactions in this thing because that doesn't have any fucking value, where Bitcoin has value and I want to keep Bitcoin.
Well, that's why they kind of say that Bitcoin is like the digital gold, like it's a store of value. And I can totally see that, you know. For me, I prefer to use Litecoin. And if I can, I do use Litecoin because it's quick, it's cheap. But you know what a crazy story?
Yes.
There's a guy over in England who has been looking for a hard drive for like 4 or 5 years now in a dump. So he threw away a hard drive and he figured out which dump it got brought to, and he's looking for it. And if you have an idea of where I'm going with this, he has like something like 500 or 600 Bitcoins on that hard drive. And he was willing to pay, the dump to like be able to like take, I don't know what he was trying to do, but he's trying to find this hard drive and then try to recover the data off it so he can access his Bitcoins. And that brings me to another part about Bitcoin. You lost your Bitcoin, right? How many other people have lost their Bitcoins? So out of 21 million, how many of those will never see the light of day? So we may end up with 19 million at one point instead of 21. So that would make it, in theory, more valuable.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I'd love to hear what you guys' thoughts are. I know you said you have a limited amount of time. If you guys enjoy this, let us know in the comments. We will, if you're down, we'll do another episode or do it more often because we clearly are both interested in this stuff and can talk about it for days. And if you enjoy it, let us know. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
I would say if you're interested in learning, I mean, YouTube platform. I mean, right now, if you're watching this video, you just learned a lot about random stuff. There's people's whole channels that are dedicated nothing but crypto. You know, if you're watching it, I mean, obviously you can use Google. Investing, I like the dollar cost averaging approach on Coinbase and crypto. You can set it to where like you buy like $20 a week or $20 every other week. So you may buy Bitcoin at 42,000. You may buy it at 40. You may buy it at 50. So it just kind of gives you a more average because you don't want to jump in when it's 50 and then it hits 40 the next day. You just lost 20%, you know? So, and like all investing, I always like to set something up that's automatic that I don't see that will add up to something in the future. That's my thoughts.
Yes. Thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge with us and the projects that you're currently doing at your house now. I appreciate it.
No problem. No, happy to spread the word. I love talking about crypto. So if you're seeing this on my channel, go check out Sam. He's got a lot of good content, a lot of good stuff. And look into crypto. It's interesting as hell.
Super interesting. Thank you.